Thank you. We now go back to Deputy Clare Daly's question, number 91. Deputy Daly wish to introduce.
Thanks very much, Ceann. Minister, this question really is about the Irish Air Accident Investigation Unit into the Manx 2 crash in Cork, but particularly with regard to what lessons have been learned from that analysis. As you're aware, the report in particular identified concerns with the lack of regulation in aviation in Europe, and I'm wondering what lessons your department has drawn in an Irish context from that.
Minister.
Thanks, Deputy, for the question. As the third anniversary of the tragic accident at Cork Airport has just passed, I want to again extend my sympathies to the relatives of the 6 passengers and aircrew who lost their lives, and also the 6 passengers who were injured. The investigation into this accident was conducted by the Air Accident Investigation Unit of my department, and I really want to commend the work of the investigation team in producing a very comprehensive report. And I know they've put an enormous amount of work into this over the last couple of years, and I think they've done a really sterling job in the report they've produced. The operator of the aircraft involved in the crash at Cork Airport was licensed in Spain, and therefore responsibility for safety oversight of its operations rested with the Spanish regulatory authorities under EU law. In Ireland, the Irish Aviation Authority has statutory responsibility for overseeing safety standards of civil aviation in the state, including airlines and crew members licensed in Ireland and aircraft registered here. The AAIU report into the Cork Airport crash made a total of 11 safety recommendations. These were addressed to the International Civil Aviation Organisation, ICAO, the European Commission, EASA, which is the European Aviation Safety Agency, the Spanish Civil Aviation Authority, and the Spanish operator of the aircraft involved. None of the safety recommendations were directed at any Irish agency. It is important that all of the safety recommendations made in the report are addressed by the organisations concerned. Ireland has an excellent record and reputation in aviation safety. The report does not bring this into question in any way. The IAA regulates the sector on the basis of international standards set down by ICAO and on the basis of EU regulations. It is audited regularly by both the EASA and by ICAO. These audits ensure that the IAA operates to the highest standards, and I have every confidence in the IAA's effectiveness in ensuring that Irish aviation is and will continue to be one of the safest in the world.
Ceann, as the Minister has said, there was a huge amount of work put into this incredibly comprehensive report, and it did identify the lack of regulation that existed in Spain. But I suppose what it also pinpointed was a very complex arrangement of companies with apparent responsibility for operating the aircraft, and it also pinpointed the circumstances upon which some of the crew had to operate. I mean, the Minister will be aware that some of the contributing factors were the tiredness and fatigue on the part of the flight crew on the flight, and also it was identified the inadequate oversight of remote operation by the operator and the state. And I suppose my question is, in an Irish context, who oversees these issues? I mean, we have airline staff operating to contracts of employment, 0-hour contracts. Some, if you like, contract pilots have to fly in order to earn money, which obviously would incentivise these people to report for duty if they're sick or under stress. Who regulates the similar contracts that exist in an Irish context to the ones that existed in the Manx crash Spanish scenario?
I think, first of all, it's important to reiterate that no recommendations were made to Irish authorities or Irish bodies here at all. So I wouldn't like to see, people trying to bring maybe Irish industrial relations issues into what was a really tragic incident for which Irish authorities have no responsibility for. It's also important to say that the purpose of this investigation and any associated investigation is not to apportion blame or liability. A safety recommendation in no case shall create a presumption of blame or liability for an occurrence. The entities, a number of entities have had safety recommendations made to them, which I mentioned. Under EU law, they're required to respond to those recommendations within 90 days, and we expect them to do that. To answer your question directly, there were 4 recommendations made to the European Commission. They were on flight time limitations, which I think you're referring to there, the role of the ticket seller, the improvement of the safety oversight and the oversight of operating licences. That's the whole issue of virtual airlines. 3 were made to EASA, and they related to the successive instrument approaches that can be conducted in aerodrome in certain meteorological conditions, the syllabus for the appointment of the commander, and the process by which the air operator certificate was granted. 2 were made to the operator, Flightline SL, regarding its operational policy and training. 1 was made to the Spanish agency regarding their oversight of air carriers, such as this one, and 1 was made to ICAO, which is the international organisation, regarding the inclusion of the approach and the capability of aircraft and flight crew and flight plans. So really, I think it's fair to say that everything from instrumental issues to training to flight time limitations, all of those are addressed in this report, and in each case, a recommendation is made to the appropriate body, none of which are Irish bodies.
Deputy Daly,
The Minister is correct, none of which are Irish, and it is an incredibly comprehensive report, which is not about blame, but I would see it as very much about learning the lessons, and it is a fact that the complex arrangement and the crew conditions were identified as a contributing factor to this tragic accident, as the Minister has said. Now, I'm not interested in blaming anybody. What I really want to know is that in an Irish context, is it the Irish Aviation Authority, or who is required to oversee the contracts of flight crew in Ireland? There have been reports of some companies, Norwegian companies in fact, seeking air operator certificates from Ireland, sort of using Ireland as a flag of convenience in this regard. And in that context, what I'm asking directly is it the IAA who are responsible for overseeing the contracts of flight crew in Ireland?
thank you, Deputy. Final reply, Mr.
Yeah, it depends on the circumstances, and it does vary from case to case. In this case, it wasn't the Irish Aviation Authority; it was Spanish authorities. When it comes to Aer Lingus, for example, Ryanair, yes, they are the Irish Aviation Authority is responsible for regulating them. Although, again, there are some exceptions because the EASA has a role too, and so do ICAO, and this is all governed by international conventions and European laws. In relation to Norwegian, Norwegian has already been granted a licence, an operator's licence from Ireland. They intend to establish a real operation in Swords, which I know is a town that you're familiar with, a very big investment there, and they intend to base their transatlantic services from Ireland, and they'll be subject to the exact same safety regulations as Aer Lingus and Ryanair are, and you'll agree that both Aer Lingus and Ryanair have excellent safety records, among the best in the world. In addition to that, they will be bound by all the same labour regulations that apply in all parts of the European Union.